Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've visited me before, and welcome to anyone who's new as well. It's so lovely to have you here with me. Today I decided to get brave and to actually face the camera. This is the first time I've ever done anything like that, so I am a little bit nervous, so do bear with me. But I thought it would be nice to chat to you today about how I like to tell a story with my quilting, and to just talk a little bit about my quilting and embroidery journey that I've been on. And it really has been a bit of a journey, so I do hope that you enjoy listening to this and that it might give you some ideas for things that you could make as well. So last year I really started to share a lot more of my sewing on Instagram, and I really found such a lovely supportive community of friends who share the same passion, and it's something that has just grown and grown for me from there. And I also started to get really interested in tiny patchwork. I think that happened because I was already really interested in quilting, but when I found English paper piecing, which I totally fell in love with, I also found a need to make projects that weren't going to take quite as long as a big quilt, because there's only so many large English paper piece quilts that you can have on the go at once, and I definitely have about 4 of those on the go at the moment, and I wouldn't really want to do many more than that because it might feel like they would never get finished. So I think that's what led me to tiny English paper piecing, and it has become a massive passion for me and something that I absolutely love. And I think the quilt that really sort of changed everything for me last year was this one. I'm sorry that it's got a bit of reflection here. It is in a glass frame, but it is called Mabel's Garden, and it is made from 1/4" hexagons. Sorry, they're not 1/4", they're 1/2" hexagons. And I made this last year, just after my gran sadly passed away, and this is when I really started to incorporate more meaning into what I was making. Up until that point I've made things for enjoyment, for creativity, for fun, but when I started to really slow down and take my time with projects, that's when I started to think more and to really put more into what I was doing. So this quilt to me tells the story of my gran's garden in the house that she used to live in when I was a child. She had lots of flower beds, and that's what these flowers, these hexagon flowers represent. And she had stone pathways in between the flower beds, and that's why I sort of took the traditional grandmother's flower garden design and I just made the mini quilt out of it, and then I did my embroidery on the paths to sort of signify being a child and running around the paths in her garden. So when I look at this quilt, that's the memory that comes flooding back to me, and that's what it means to me, and it actually is quite an emotional thing. So I made this and I got a really lovely response to this when I shared it online, and I've never really experienced anything like that before, and for some reason I got some courage and I entered it into a local art competition at an art gallery near to where I live, and it was selected to be exhibited over the summer, and that is something that I never expected would ever happen to me. I don't consider myself to be an artist. I don't really know why I got the courage to apply for that competition. I was heavily encouraged by my family, but I'm really glad that I did. I'm really glad that I got brave, and that's something that I've been trying to do a lot of lately, is get braver, hence why I'm now showing myself on video. So that's the story behind that, really. I didn't win the competition, but it isn't about that, and it was never about that for me. But the art gallery in which it was exhibited was a place that my gran really loved going to, and it had a cafe in the art gallery, and that is actually where they put this piece. They had display boards in the cafe as well as all throughout the gallery, in the corridors and in the main area. And just by chance, mine was actually exhibited in the cafe, and that just had so much meaning for me. It was the best place that they could have chosen, and I'm just sad that my gran never got to see it there. She would have been so pleased. She was the biggest encouragement for me. She always really praised me and made me feel really good about the things that I make, and I have a lot to thank her for. She was a fantastic sewer and crocheter as well. Maybe I'll show you some of her things one day, but it's down to her why I am sewing now. So yeah, this is a super special piece, and it's currently on the wall in my dining room, and I look at it every day, and I think about her and the journey that I've been on because of this. I just thought I'd like to share that with you today. So the next piece that I'm going to show you is the mini quilt that you saw a bit of if you watched my last video, which was about English paper piecing butterflies. I thought I would tell you a little bit about the story that this quilt tells for me. So the idea for this just came about when I was thinking about the seasons and creating a seasonal sampler to replicate my feelings and what I think of throughout the year. And it is the whole thing, if I just lean back, it is the size of an A3 piece of paper. So it isn't very big, it's a mini quilt. But I started by drawing all of the boxes, splitting the piece of paper into those size panels, and then I made them out of fabric, joined them together, and then this section here represents spring, these two represent summer, and I've got two here that represent autumn and winter for these two at the bottom. So when I was thinking about spring, and I'll just hold it up closely, I chose the 1/2 inch hexagons again, and I chose lots of floral fabrics, and I added the Lazy Daisy and French knot flowers that I like to include on pretty much everything I make. And I was just thinking about spring flowers, the first flowers that you see as winter turns into spring. This is a snowdrop fabric. There's some more of it here. So I was thinking about those and those glimpses of colour that you see once the winter is finished and spring has begun, and the joy that you feel when you see those flowers. So that's what this represents to me. The two summer blocks that you can see here represent more vibrancy of the flowers and colours that you see during the summer. And of course butterflies are a real summer motif, aren't they? We see them flying and landing on the beautiful flowers in the summer, so that's why I added those. Moving down into autumn, I was starting to think about woodland walks and the beautiful berries that you see on the plants and trees at that time, acorns and mushrooms appearing, and to me, when I look at this, it conjures up images of woodland walks with my family and spotting signs of nature at that time. I'm really inspired by nature, it's a big part of my life, so it's I like to incorporate that into the things that I make. So just give you a little close-up there. And then the final part of the quilt at the bottom is the winter section. So for the winter part, I was thinking about snow-capped mountains in the woods and a cosy log cabin with the fire roaring inside and a cosy night in underneath the moon and the stars at winter time. So that was the sort of story that I was trying to tell with that section of the quilt. So, like I said in my other video, I'm thinking about doing a free pattern from this. Well, I am going to make a free pattern from this, but the pattern writing process and having everything tested and making sure the written instructions make sense is a lengthy process. So what I'm going to do is, if you look down below in this video, you'll see a link to some basic written instructions. They're very basic. They give you the overall size of the piece and they tell you how many panels to cut out, what size they need to be, and how to join them together. And then every couple of weeks, I'll put a video on here which will talk about how to make each motif for each part of the mini quilt, and I'll show you some techniques for the embroidery and that sort of thing. Now, I've actually done enough for the butterfly panel that you'll probably be able to make a start on that already. So I've done it a little bit out of order, I'm sorry about that. A lot of what I do is I'm just sort of making it up as I go along. So yeah, but hopefully you'll be able to follow that. Or wait for the first video, which hopefully will be out next week. And I'll talk you through this section here. I'll say every couple of weeks. It might be every week, but I don't want to commit to every week just in case something comes up. I have a young son, he's 3 years old, and he is my absolute priority. So if I don't get a chance to film a video or something like that, it'll be the next week. And I thought that doing the video tutorials and providing templates for things and just having minimal written instructions might be a quicker way for me to sort of get this mini quilt pattern out there. I find the written instructions take me a really long time. So hopefully by showing it through video, it'll be easy to understand and it'll be quicker for me to keep up with it. So it's a bit of an experiment. I've never really done anything like this before. So we'll see how it goes. So feel free to join me, or feel free to wait until all of the videos are uploaded and then give it a go. But it'll be nice if we're sort of making this together as a community. I think that's a fun idea. But there's no pressure to keep up or anything like that. It's just that for me, I think if I schedule the videos for every week or two, it'll be a nice way to sort of split up the instructions for this. The first 3 parts are pretty straightforward. It's only as you go further down the quilt that some of the shapes are a little bit, the non-standard English paper piecing shapes. As you can see here, I've used diamonds, jewels and hexagons, but below I've cut out some shapes that are leaf shapes and acorn shapes, as well as down below. So I'll talk more in depth about those shapes, and the templates will be available to print off. One thing I do use for those, for everything here, including the applique, is the hexiform sheets. I use hexiform shapes that are pre-cut for the traditional shapes, and I buy hexiform sheets for the other shapes and cut them to the shapes that I want. But I'll also do a more in-depth video talking about that too. So I hope that makes sense. I'll be back probably next week where I'll talk about the hexiform and the first panel here. So until then, have a look down below at the brief instructions that are there for piecing together your quilt top before adding all the embellishments. And if you'd like to join me, you could get that started and then you'll be ready for next week. And of course, there is the butterfly video from last week that you could make a start on as well. If you do have any problems or there's something that you don't quite understand, then if you go to my website, I have a contact form there. You can always get in touch there, or you can send me a direct message on Instagram, and I really try to reply as quickly as possible. I do have an email address as well, so I just wary of actually saying that out loud in case I get some spam, because that does happen. But if you have a look on my website, I'm sure the details are there, but the contact form, it comes to my email address. So yeah, that's it. So just want to say thanks ever so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, it does make such a difference. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. It's lovely to have you here with me. So until next time, take care and happy sewing.